Hi, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of our Demystifying Healing podcast. And this episode is going to be about being authenticity, being yourself in a society of others. And this may sound kind of weird or something, but I will explain what it means. So what I'm going to share today is based on what I tuned into for one of my videos on astrological weather, which I'm experimenting with what YouTube videos I want to make. That's why my other channel is actually just full of random stuff because I don't really know what I want to make. So one of the things I was experimenting with was planets astrological update, like astro weather update. And it was in the beginning of the Aquarius season. So now we're into Pisces season, but that was the kind of beginning of Aquarius season. And I tuned into Aquarius, and at that time, I remember Pluto and Saturn were active and significant. And during my meditation, they told me like Aquarius was a kind of like a fluid kind of general kind of energy, and it just was giving me a message, to be yourself, regardless of what society thinks. And then I was just thinking, I'm not gonna say that, because it's, first of all, I felt like it's a cliche, and it's also a very general idea, like, okay, be yourself no matter what people think. But how do we do this? How many people give us this advice, and how many times we want to do this, but it just feels like one of those advices is like a out in the air advice. And I just really couldn't. I didn't want to record that video because it was like, come on, I don't want to say this. So I said, you guys got to give me some more information about this. So give me some kind of guidance. And then I saw Pluto and Mars get together from kind of here, flew from behind me and just went together. And they showed me this terrible purple monster like round thing, and it had a lot of teeth. And it was really, really scary. And that represented to me society. And then what they were doing is, as they were coming together, that circle kind of went further away. And the circle, I could see when the perspective changed, when I wasn't right there, getting eaten by the teeth of society, the circle was moving away. And I saw that the circle was just a circle with teeth, but it was empty inside. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's not so scary. And then they said, yeah, why did you think it was supposed to be scary? Why did you think that society has to be scary? And I said, but who is this society? Who is this? That was my question, because the circle was empty. And that's why I was kind of like, it's empty inside. Like, who is this? Can you show me better? And they said, yes, like that's your advice. Like there has to be a face there. And they're like, exactly. Can you look at society and put a face to it? Because a lot of times we look at society and we think, like, I think we're just really, really used to not really analyzing things so much. We just go like with the flow, like, oh, okay, society, be myself, regardless of what society thinks. It's like, man, that's really scary, because society is, for me, at least in the beginning, as I was doing this analysis, I was like, society is the whole world. Like, why would I be myself regardless what the whole world thinks of me? It's so scary. Of course, I'm not going to be something against the whole world. That's really dangerous. That's really stupid. I'm not going to do that. And then they were guiding my analysis, like, okay, well, what specifically do you think you can't do? And which society will say something about it? So I was saying, for example, I got my degrees, and I was supposed to do my regular, work that I was educated for. And I felt like I was doing work that I didn't care about. And I always wanted to be like something about spirituality or something about art, something like that. And I could never really do that. And then they asked me, okay, so can you tell us the face of that society, which would be against you working in spirituality and in art, and not using a formal education? So immediately I saw my father's face in that circle, who is the one that told me that when I started to go to my university, when I was choosing my faculty, he actually said, "What do you want?" And I told him, "Well, I really love to draw," And then he's like, "Okay, you can draw on the weekends, but you really have to get a real job." So I got into finance and banking, and I've never worked in that field, just only international business stuff. And then another degree of mine was in education, Master of Science in Education, and I did use that degree to be a teacher. But I was really, really scared of doing spiritual stuff and doing art because of a society that will disapprove of that. And for some reason, I assumed that society was the whole world. Therefore, I can't be myself because the whole world will be against me. But it's not even I can't be myself. They're saying, they told me this. First of all, separate the things you want to do and how do you want to be authentic. There's a whole bunch, just like the society is really huge and can be separated. The stuff you want to do is also really huge and can be separated. Like, which thing do you want to do that makes you feel alive? Which part? And okay, that, for example, one part. Then look at the society in your mind, the representation, put a face to that society. Society never talks to anyone as a society. The society always has a face who represents it. And sometimes those faces change. Maybe a teacher, maybe somebody on TV, maybe there's going to be a person. And society has faces. So it's like a weird construct that, yeah, it's many, but when you talk to it, it's going to have one face probably. One face at a time. So they're like, check out who's that face. And then I was like, okay, my father. And then they're like, and everybody from my father's family. So they're like all very educated and doctors and PhDs and everything. And I thought, if I'm going to share on Instagram that I'm a shamanic healing practitioner, I'm going to have shame. And you and I discussed this for years too. It's like, shame, she's gone crazy. She's putting shame on our family because she didn't create a PhD and doesn't use it or something like that. And they're like, okay, well, that giant society you thought was the whole world just became very small, which is even just only one part of your family, not even your whole family. So they're like, isn't it easier to do something by yourself? It's like, now you can evaluate, okay, what's the value of me being myself working in spiritual healing and art, and the value of these people approving me? Can I let go of these people approving me so that I can feel alive and do what I love? And then they're like, you're not working against the whole world and the whole society. You're just working against actually like maybe 5 people. And then once it's so clear that, oh, it's just a few people, and they're like, and did you even go to these people and ask them if they even care what you actually think, what they actually think? Because I'm sure if I actually go to them and I'm gonna tell them, hey, do you feel ashamed of me because I did this? They're gonna be like, I know a few people already canceled out in my head. A few people already canceled out in my head. Like, they're going to be, are you crazy? Like, do what you love. So And they're saying everything you do want to do in life, separated from the generalness of how to be authentic, what it is to be me. Find one thing you want to do that you feel like it's you today, not even the whole time, just today. And find who are these people that you're so afraid of. And they're saying find substratums of society. And first I was like, actually now I already said it very quickly, but at first I thought that there was a bigger substratum of society, which was the whole world of academicians. I thought I have to fight against the whole world of academicians. I don't have to. They won't even know I'm doing this. They won't even check my posts because they don't check spiritual stuff. If they do, and I'm making assumptions that academicians don't check spiritual stuff. How many assumptions there are in my head? They're just messing everything up, diluting everything, and multiplying to create a lot of fear in myself. So I sit in and I'm afraid to post something, like even one post. Yeah. There's one more example of being authentic, which was kind of weird, that I want to share. I used to think kind of bad things about the people who I was friends with in Bangkok when I was young, like my early 20s. We used to go clubbing a lot. And I remember that I used to say yes to, they would say, oh, come on, let's go to this club, to that club. And I would be kind of bored and I didn't really want to go to clubs and I didn't really enjoy everything there. And especially as I was older, I was like, I really don't want to go there. And I remember just saying, yes, I'm going there anyway. And then sometimes I would go to the balcony of the club or something, or some secluded place with nobody. And I would just look at the whole scene and I would be like, what am I doing here? I don't like any of this. I'm not enjoying any of it. And then I would just start crying out loud in the street, but nobody would see me. I would be in a secluded place, but I would just cry and cry and cry. Then I would stop crying, then go back to the club. And at some point, I guess I thought, man, I have to pretend to be something else so that other people can like me. Or I thought that if I'm going to be myself, I'm not going to, like, all my friends are going to be, I disappear and nobody's going to want to talk to me. And then slowly, I realized that who was being the lying one? Who was being the inauthentic one and the one deluding others? It was always me. I was just lying. So was it them? They actually enjoyed it. They were actually honest about it. And yeah, there would be some people like me who would go along with the story, but would be kind of lying. But it was me lying to myself and lying to them. I wasn't even lying to myself. I knew that I didn't want to, but I was lying to them. Maybe if I just told them, hey guys, yeah, it's really not my thing. Well, they wouldn't push me. I mean, yeah, sure, we wouldn't be friends anymore because we'd have nothing to do together. But at least I'm not going to be lying to them and going out with them,
Sure. Yeah.
So like I was the one who was lying and I didn't have to. And the moment I started to actually say no to things, I started losing friends. But I also started posting and speaking online about the things that really I cared about. And once I started doing that, the magical thing started happening is that I found people who actually like the same things as me. And I don't know why this was so fascinating to me, because now it just sounds like, stupid or something. But at that time, it wasn't. It was like, oh my God, I'm going to post this. And the whole world will put thunders on me because Olga didn't use her education. She wrote about spiritual stuff and how she put a shame on our family. And which is bullshit, of course. And then suddenly I started to get all these people as friends. Like I found my teacher for shamanic healing because she responded to one of my questions and she said, oh, I actually teach this. Do you want to, do you want to get to like one of my classes? You can see if this is right for you. And I did. And then it went on to like a 3-year journey of healing and learning shamanism and shamanic healing. And and then after that, more friends. And now I still have that shame and fear to open up about it, but it's getting less and less and less. So yeah, I guess if I have to summarize my advice on how to be authentic within a society of other people, even if grammatically it may sound weird, a society of other people, why do you have to mention that? Because they are other people. And in some ways, I am a part of that society. And in some ways, I'm not a part of some societies that I pretend to be. Like, I'm not a part of a lot of the societies that I'm afraid of. So that's my 2 peas in a pot.
I love this.
I don't know. Is that even a thing to say? I don't know.
2 cents. My 2 cents. And I would say
okay, that's my 2 cents. Okay. That's my 2 peas in the pot. What? Okay.
I know. It makes sense because we are two people doing this podcast together. 2 peas in a pod. Yeah, in a podcast.
In a pod. Yeah. So it all made sense.
Yeah, it always makes sense.
Like even right now, I'm afraid. Who am I afraid of that I'm going to say 2 peas in the pot? Who am I ashamed of? I immediately imagined a society of English-speaking, English language academic professionals, and they're all looking at me with glasses and pens in their mouth and nice notebooks, and they're like, she doesn't know how to speak English. This is very bad.
I have a notebook and a pen in my hand right now, though I'm not English.
Like, these people are not looking at me, and it's like, if they would ever, what are you gonna, like, so what? Yeah, I make mistakes. English is not my first language, but I think we automatically create these groups of people who are against us. What?
Exactly. I had these same doubts and worries when I started putting out content on spirituality. So I have a background in political science and international relations, and most of the teachers that I kept in touch with from my university over these 10 years, 11 years since college, have been teachers who are very steeped in the social sciences, very steeped in rationality. They are people who would call spirituality woo. I mean, they would be absolutely dismissive about, spirituality and all of that. So for a long time, like, my journey with spirituality and healing, it began 9 years ago. And for the last 7 years, I've been totally into it. Like, I came out of clinical depression because of spirituality. Like, there was a time when my therapist told me that she can refer me to a psychotherapist so that she can prescribe medicines for me. And that's when I was like, no, I'm not going to go take that route, because I already had friends who were taking meds and their life hadn't improved. In fact, their relationships, their life, their degrees, their careers are falling apart. And I had a zoomed out perspective of it. I was like, okay, maybe it's because you are just trying to numb the symptoms with the medicines. Maybe the problem is that you're not getting to the root of the problem. I don't know where I got that sense, because it was against all my academic training. It was not a belief system which any of my friends at the time had, or the people that I was usually hanging out with. Or maybe it's a past life thing. Maybe I have people in my family who are no more in the physical now, but I've heard stories about them, of them healing themselves and, coming out of morbid illnesses, whether it's physical illness or mental illness. So I think somewhere those stories were in my psyche, and I was drawing from them as well. But yeah, that's how it started. And I pulled myself out of clinical depression because of my spiritual practices. And then there came a time when my teachers told me that you are supposed to start teaching now. As in, the reason there came a point in my life where I was working in the media in a publishing house. I was also writing scripts, but everything in my life was falling apart. I was very unhappy in my career. I was very unhappy with the friends I was hanging out with. Like you said, as in I was working 18 hours a day. I didn't really have any time to find friends from the spiritual world or the healing world. So I was hanging out with colleagues. And these colleagues and I had nothing in common. I still have the greatest love in my heart for them. But if you have nothing in common, then you cannot be fulfilled by hanging out with them. So I was spending a lot of time hanging out with them, but I could never tell them that I am into healing and spirituality and this is how I got out of depression. In fact, Olga, I have even lied to some of those colleagues, telling them that I was on medication and medication is what got me out of depression. So now I think that why did I have to say that? Why? Because I was so ashamed of telling them that the reason I could get out of my childhood trauma was because I was doing this, 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 and this. And I was like, oh my God, they think this is woo-woo stuff. She's just deluded. She's, psychotic, stuff like that. And so, I mean, what kind of peer pressure was I where, I had to, be a walking, talking advertisement for the pharmaceutical industry, which I'm totally, totally against.
Yeah, you were really against and you actually lied. Yeah, I'm on meds. Yeah, I'm normal. I'm taking medication.
I know. And I was like, oh my God, that's when I took a step back. And, I had a conversation with my, spiritual teachers. So they told me, you are supposed to quit your job and you are supposed to, take some time off and really, become very, very clear on the kind of people you want to coach, the kind of people you want to teach, and they will come to you. It's not like you have to go out and see. Just start telling people that this is what you do. If you are the medicine, whoever needs the medicine will come to you. I mean, I think most spiritual traditions do teach you that. When you become the medicine, seekers come to you. As in, people seek the medicine. So to cut a very long story short, when I first started posting stuff on healing, I only advertised myself as a masculinity and femininity coach. So what I told people was that I want to help women live according to their menstrual cycle. There are 4 phases to a 28-day cycle that a woman has, that a menstruating woman has. And your life, your career, your relationships, your marriage, your children, everything becomes, a breeze if you start living according to your menstrual cycle. I think we should make a video on that separately. How to live.
A cheese breeze, right?
I was going to say cheesecake, and then I was like, life will become a breeze. Because I wasn't sure if life is a cheesecake, is a
cheese breeze. All right, is a cheese breeze. All right, I like that word. This is cheese breeze, man.
Oh, yeah, it sounds very.
I like it.
Latin American. Yes. So it sounds like a dish, a cheesy dish, which is light. I think something like tiramisu, because tiramisu looks very rich, but when you eat it, it's very light.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that. Oh God, how did we get from psychotic medication to cheese? Yes. So when I first started talking about this work, about what I do, I did not want to speak about my, about how I got out of depression. I did not want to speak about the spiritual practices or the tradition that I come from. I did not want to speak about anything to do with spirituality. I only advertise myself as this woman who can teach women how to be more receptive and teach men how to be providers and protectors. Right. But every night I was like, I was like, oh my God, this is not what I do. I think I should, come out with it. And then the voice in my head was like, no, but if you tell people exactly what you do, that you are a healer, and that's what you silently do, as in you take, you heal strangers and people who are your friends don't really know that you do it. Right. If I were to come out and tell my friends and family about it, then they would think I'm crazy. They would cut me off. They would straight out tell me that this is not the life that you should live. Or more than coming out to me and telling me that I was off my path, I thought they would gossip about me and people would, talk about me in groups in ways that are unflattering. And to add to this, when I first started talking about masculinity and femininity, I used to frame it like this, that the modern woman in a corporate setting is usually burnt out because she is not living in alignment with a cycle, and because women are not supposed to live, women are not supposed to live as rigidly as men, because men have 16 times more testosterone, than women. And I gave them the whole scientific explanation behind why women cannot function in the corporate world. So I was out on Facebook, on my social media, or even when talking to my friends or the teachers that I kept in touch with, I started telling them that I teach feminine and masculine energy because of these scientific reasons. And this is how it will help women to be more in the feminine. And this is why men should be in the masculine for their mental health, for their hormones, and all of that, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of my teachers started giving me rave reviews. They were like, oh my God, this is very good work. This is like a marriage between what you have studied in social sciences and you're using sciences, science as well. And, you are doing something very productive with it. And for a while I enjoyed it. But then I was like, this is true, but this is not what I do, right? As in, my work is deeper. As in healing, spiritual healing is much, much deeper than, what I'm teaching right now. As in what I'm telling people that I teach right now. But then I plateaued at that point because I thought that I'm getting so much praise I'm getting so much praise from my teachers and my friends for revealing just a fraction of what I was doing. And then I was like, what if? And then another layer of fears came up for me when my guides told me that it's time for you to go deeper. And I was like, oh my God, I have friends and teachers who are okay with what I do, as in this whole masculine, feminine energy work. What if I lose their approval, or what if they think I'm crazy if I, go deeper and tell them that spirituality is much deeper than this? Or in India, spirituality is all about peace and kumbaya. So it's like, but it's much, much more than that, right? As in, peace is not like, from the tradition that I come from, peace is supposed to be just the neutralizer. You are supposed to live in bliss. Unless you're living in bliss, it said that you're not moving towards the highest potential that you're capable of. In fact, my guides tell me that peace is important, but you have something called peace plus. People only lose peace when there is no peace in their life. So that's like a trauma response to it. I don't like using these words, trauma response and all of that, but this is a way to explain it. You only go after something which, you only hanker after something if that's not in your experiential reality, in your everyday life. So, as in, for most Indians, I won't say most Indians, that would be a generalization, but there is this general understanding of spirituality as, or somebody who's into spirituality as somebody who's always peaceful, somebody who's, doesn't have a colorful life, whatever that means, or, there is that image which goes with a spiritual person. And I'm nothing like that. As in, you know me, and like most people who know me who will watch this video, they know that I have my idea of a colorful life. I want to be fully involved in life. The way, I don't want to live in resistance to life. There are colors to life, and I want to experience all of that. Yeah, there are days when, I can spend days in, just doing my spiritual practices. But those are phases. And I have those phases because they're meant to take me a level deeper into my spiritual leanings. I did not choose to become a yogi in the Himalayas, right? I don't want to give up the parts of my life which make me human. These are not limiting words, but I'm just saying this too, So that was that. And then after my birthday this year, something happens, because during a birthday, the sun moves back into, the zodiac it was originally in when you're born. So it energizes your soul's path. Your sun sign is supposed to be your soul's path. So, I was sitting with a couple of friends on my birthday, and suddenly it just came to me. I was having my Parsi dinner, and I was suddenly like, why am I living this way? that was the only question, That was the
why am I what?
Why am I living this way? As in, why am I so afraid of being my full authentic expression?
Yeah.
And that I mean, there was no internal dialogue. There was no alchemy. Of course, there was alchemy, but nothing major happened to me. As it was not this, great realization or whatever. It was just this very normal thought which came to my mind. I was like, okay, I don't need to live this way. From tomorrow onwards, I'm going to speak about spirituality and healing and all of that. And it is going to be helpful to people. I mean, this thought just came to me. And from the next day onwards, I mean, if you go to my social media, you will see this, because after the 13th of January, my posts completely took on a different, I mean, they went on a different tangent. Before them, it was all about, before January 13th this year, it was about femininity, masculinity, this and that,
Mm-hmm.
But after that, now I'm like unhinged.
Yeah, well, you also unhinged me.
Back.
Like, I think it's working. Yeah, I know it's working both ways. Like, I started to post more. I don't know, but I'm very grateful that you are also helping me to be more outspoken. And also, I want to mention, like, even though we're talking about being authentic in a society of other people, it doesn't mean that, like, oh, we are the people who are completely authentic and completely open and completely healed and
exactly,
done.
It's a process.
And yeah, it's a process. Exactly. Like, we're still scared of some stuff and a lot of stuff, and exactly. It's a process. Yeah, it's just one.
Oh my God, which brings me to this. How? Oh yes. So the reason I'll just go into the history of my childhood, just for context. So I grew up in a family where you were supposed to just push through your difficult emotions and just achieve. As in, since the day I was born, my parents had this dream for me that I will be a doctor. I mean, that's all. I mean, that's a very Indian middle class thing. As in, you're supposed to be a doctor or an engineer. That's all. Either you're a doctor or an engineer. If you're a woman, if you're a girl, you should become a doctor. If you're a man, then become, an engineer.
Okay. If you're a girl doctor, you should marry a man engineer. So that's it.
Oh, yes. For the longest time, it was that. Now I think it's changing because doctors are, that's a conversation for another day. That's, another. One day I would like to talk about trends in society and how, how there's a certain sickness to the kind of partners we choose, as in, whatever. As in, it's a very unconscious choice. I mean, how you choose your partners. Anyway, so my father was in the government and he was in a powerful position. And everything about the Indian government is very formal and rigid and regimented. You're supposed to keep this constipated face. I'm sorry, all my friends who are working in the government, I have the deepest love for you. And a lot of you are breaking molds, because now I can see bureaucrats, I mean, friends who are my age or even younger, they are bureaucrats and they're not as rigid on the social media. They can, be themselves. But back in the day, it was all about appearances. You're supposed to be stately. People are not going to take you seriously if you're in a powerful position and if you're goofy, if you smile too much, if you, even your compassion has to come through, sternness, authority, all of that. So this was what I grew up with. And in my family, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I've healed, and now it sounds very silly. But back in the day, like, I wasn't supposed to have fun. Even play, for example, something, activities like drawing, painting, singing, or dancing, all of it was in service to showing people that you are accomplished. These were all things which were supposed to show people that you are capable, that not only are you a good student, you also know how to draw, you also know how to sing, you also, swim, you are like this all-rounder. In fact, in schools, we used to have something called the all-rounders trophy. Every year, I think it's in other cultures as well, I don't know, but we used to have
same that. In my family too. Like, you have to play the violin, piano, and singing and dancing. You have to be. I wouldn't use that word all around. There's something about cultured, culturally educated, cultured, or something. Yeah.
Exactly. I think in my parents' generation, it was about being cultured, because not only are you a good student, you also have, if you're a girl, you know how to cook, and if you're a guy, stuff like that. So you were supposed to know a bunch of things. But the moment you take away the play aspect of all these things, it becomes a chore. So when I was 12 years old, I was coming back from school at 2:30 p.m. And from 2 to 2:15, I'd take a bath. From 2:15 to 2:30, I would have my lunch. Then I'd sleep for 1.5 hours. And then I would go for my singing class, then my swimming class, and then my painting class. But that didn't last because I was terrible at painting. And then we would come back and, I had to do my homework, then study, then dinner, then half an hour of walking. So, I mean, I still remember it. I mean, I rattled this off. I did not even have to think, right? Because it is that ingrained in me that you're supposed to live this. And Saturday, Sundays, yes, you can wake up late, but then you have to compensate for that by studying, extra and, stuff like that. So my life was very regimented. And I remember that I had internalized it so much that teachers of mine or friends of my family, my parents, who were playful or who were nice to me or who encouraged me to play rather than study, or not rather than study, like they were telling me not to study, but they were like, okay, have some fun, go on a picnic, come back. I used to be disgusted by those people because I used to feel that, oh, these people are taking me away from my path. They don't want to be a doctor. So whatever your parents, that's probably also because my parents sort of put it into me that anybody who tells you to be funny or playful or goofy, they're not, they don't have the best intentions for you. Mm-hmm. So how did that manifest? In my life later on, all my friends were everybody, all my teachers, like the teachers that I considered, bigwigs or teachers that I thought had some wisdom to give me. They were all sullen. They were all people who were sullen. They were all people who took life very seriously, to the extent that I think some of them had clinical depression. Of course, I am not diagnosing anybody, but then from my practice and from my own experiences, I know that they were extremely unhappy. And if you are in a very dark place, you should not be in a position of bringing up children, or you should not be in a position where you are a teacher to children, because you pass it on to them. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm going to say something very politically or spiritually, not politically incorrect, but you cannot be a good guide to somebody if you are that depressed, because you look at life through very dark filters. And a child is like a sponge. They will, especially in a society where parents and teachers are taken to be the ultimate authority and you're not supposed to question them, which is the case with the India that I grew up in, the New Delhi that I grew up in. It can be a lot for a child to handle. Because then you might have this authentic voice which is crying out and telling you, oh, you should not be a doctor because that's not for you. You should probably just write. You should write fiction. This is where your joy lies. But then you hear all these voices of your parents, of your depressed teachers, of whoever, and then you're like, no, this is not what I'm supposed to do. That is what I'm supposed to do, and that's how you kill your authenticity. Which is why when I do inner child work healing exercises with my clients, I tell them that all these practices are just a way to get you in touch with that 4-year-old in you. What did the 4-year-old or the 6-year-old in you, what did that child want to do? All these exercises, these are just rituals to get you to that stage. If you can directly jump to that stage, then my work here is done. And yours begins because you are going to start living an authentic life. So for me, it was that. And things are so toxic for us, for our generation of children, kids growing up in middle class India 10, 15 years ago. It was so toxic that we were told that you could do what you want to do, as in if you want to be a writer or a chef or whatever, a photographer, you can do that, but only after you have become a doctor or an engineer. In fact, there is this writer called Chetan Bhagat, and he's a pop writer, in the sense he's written a lot of books for young adults, love stories, and it's mostly about teenagers who are in engineering colleges and their love life, the way they navigate life and all of that. Mm-hmm. So he used to be a sensation back when I was in school. I was in 11th or 12th, I think. And I remember I was telling one of my best friends at the time that, oh my God, I want to write. And I wish I did not have to study for my medical entrance exams. I just want to write. So why don't I just do a degree in literature and then branch out and become a writer? And this friend was like, of course, she was also my age and didn't know any better. She was like, nobody is going to read your books if you don't become a doctor, because Chetan Bhagat is an engineer. That's why people are reading his books. He's an engineer from the best engineering college in the country. And at that age, I was like, oh my God, she's right. I have to become a doctor, even for people to take my writing seriously. And this brings me back to what you said about society. The society that I was living in had this mentality. They had this belief that people are only going to read your work or buy your art or whatever if you prove your credentials as a serious professional first, a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. From my perspective as a child, I was like, why would you waste a medical seat? Or why would you? I mean, there might be somebody who really wants to become a doctor.
Yeah.
Or really wants to become an engineer. And it should be left to them. I mean, why are you making it more difficult for them by sitting in an exam that you don't want to sit in? So going back to what you said about society, I was living in a society where we had all these limiting beliefs or this limited perspective. And that's the face that I had put on the whole of society. My parents, my friends who were my age and whose parents were similar to my parents, and we were all from the same, kind of background and all of that. So yeah, for us, it used to be like, you had to earn your right to be authentic. This is how I would like to put it. As in, first become a doctor, which is not the authentic you. And that's like donating blood or going through a blood right. And then you can go to your authentic self, but and become a writer or whatever. But then most people get stuck at this stage. As in, once you become a doctor, you don't see any point in becoming a writer. There are so many people who get lost in that.
Also, you're too exhausted. When I was a teacher, like I was like, okay, now that I did make quite a lot of money for myself to like have my house and like apartment, and I was free kind of financially, but physically and mentally I was completely drained. Completely.
Exactly.
And being with children is like really, really hard. Like you said, if you're depressed, you shouldn't be with kids. I didn't want to, but I couldn't figure out a way how I'm gonna quit this job because I'm gonna have to make money. And I wasn't equipped to make money doing anything else. Like, but and just like at home, I came home, that's it. I just had enough energy to eat, watch something and sleep. That's all I could do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very hard life. I lived 7-8 years like that. Even after starting my spiritual journey, I lived like that because I was very afraid of letting go of my job, because I was like, what will happen to me? I don't have a family that will, provide for me if I don't provide for myself. And they will say, you only have yourself to blame because you left your job and now you don't have any money, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a major block. And yeah, that's that. And another thing is that if you're not living your authentic truth, you become very obsessed with people who are living in their authentic truth. Like, for example, I used to be obsessed with men who could speak very well. And we have had this conversation last week. And that was, now I realized that maybe it wasn't even a romantic connection. It was just, I was so used to suppressing my authentic voice that every time there was somebody who was able to express himself in a very authentic, who was comfortable with emotions like passion and rage while they were giving a speech, that was very magnetic to me. Right. And yeah, that was that. I mean, I had like obsessions like that, but I think it is because of, I wasn't, coming into my own, I had a lot of, respect for writers, for people who could speak, say whatever they wanted to, and live their truth. But at the same time, even up until 4 years ago, I didn't allow myself to fully be in awe of these people or explore their work, because my parents' voice was still in my head. I was like, they are not doing anything good for the world. They're not doing anything constructive for the world, because what is writing or what is art? I mean, it does not have a structure to it. These are just things that you're making up in your head. It's not like becoming a doctor where you put in 6 years of dedicated, work. You study 20 hours a day for 6 years, and then you go into your master's, which is like 24 hours of studying. And then now I think you need a super specialization as well to be seen as a doctor of good. Right. So unless you have like 10, 12 years of back-breaking labor, yeah. So unless you have put in very, very intense hard work into a degree or a couple of degrees, 4, 5 degrees, then you're not equipped to be an expert at certain things. So, but then writing is something which came very naturally to me. So, from my parents' perspective, anything which comes naturally to you is not something that you have earned. So, it's just like extracurricular activities. So, I had no respect for my writing. I had no respect for anything which came to me naturally. And yeah, that's how I killed my authenticity, because all the things that were authentic to me, all my talents that were authentic to me, all my thoughts that were authentic to me, these were things that came to me very naturally. But since I came from a culture where hard work was glorified to a toxic extent, I demonized everything or belittled everything which came to me naturally. And I ended up being obsessed with people who could honor their authenticity and speak their truth. So yeah, that was a very toxic dynamic I was in. And it also led to social anxiety. As in, I would go to parties and not be able to speak to people because I had learned to push down the authentic part of me, the goofy part of me, the part of me that was silly about certain things, the part of me that did not have to be smart all the time, or the part of me that could just chill. Right. And the funny part was all the parties that I was going to required me, not required, all that was expected out of me in those parties was to be a goofy, happy self. But I couldn't be that way because I had trained myself out of being goofy and silly. And there was so much self-judgment that I couldn't be goofy. And I ended up becoming like this wet blanket. As in, I remember like if somebody at a party would make a joke, I would laugh, but my laughter would come out as condescending, or the conversation wasn't for them. The condescension was for me, as in why am I not able to enjoy a joke? And and then I would be like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to enjoy this joke because this joke has no practical purpose. This party has no practical purpose. I am not contributing in a meaningful way. And oh my God, it's like very toxic and very messy. And then I'd go to the washroom and cry my eyes out and, come back and then get drunk. And, that was my way of surviving, through, things.
Oh, you also cried. Nice. Okay. Guys, if you guys are listening to this and you ever cried in a social event you didn't want to go to, please comment so that, how many people actually go and cry? Yeah, because they really can't connect to what they're doing. And then who's the person being inauthentic? Do we blame all other people for being inauthentic? Or are we just like really disconnected from ourselves and we're lying to ourselves? Yeah.
Exactly. In fact, Olga, a year ago, I had a podcast with a friend. You know about this. And a couple of people who, my friends and people who have followed me on social media, they know about this. The reason that we no longer have that podcast, we did a few episodes and then, we decided not to do it. But the reason for that was the entire premise of that podcast was trauma bonding. And that is not something which I resonate with. But I was so afraid of telling my friend that, no, I don't want to stop here. I want to make this podcast into something deeper. But I knew that I couldn't say this to him. And he was also going through a lot of stuff at that time. And even I was going through a lot of stuff. So there was a lack of communication and the whole podcast sort of fell apart. And even while recording, I used to feel like I had recording episodes. I used to feel like I had this boulder in my throat where I couldn't really speak my truth because my way of dealing with trauma was very different from my friends, my co-hosts' way of dealing with trauma. So even to verbalize what I felt about trauma or how to deal with trauma, I used to find it very difficult. But then the problem was, okay, so with this friend, yes, their pronouns are they and them. So I'm going to use that. They are gender fluid. With them, there was this, they were at a stage in their life where they only wanted to verbalize their trauma. okay, and any attempt to take a look at it, or any attempt to sort of deal with it or heal it, uh, was not really taken by them, you know, it was taken by them as an attack. And I know where they were coming from. I have a lot of respect and love for them. So this is not like me bitching about somebody I once did a podcast with. I mean, I have 12 years of friendship with this person. So it comes from a lot of love. But the point is that what was the reason that I agreed to doing a podcast with this person, even though I knew that this is not going to fare well for either of us? Because I was suppressing my authentic voice. Because I could have said, oh, I don't want to do this, or, probably we should do this later when we're both, well adjusted to.
So like you wanted to speak about solutions, not just the problems, but your partner was like, I want to talk about the problems, but not so much solutions. Okay.
Yeah. Solutions, because that was, yes. And the problem with that is, there's no problem with that. The point is that I have no judgment for such podcasts. Mm-hmm. I mean, you do need such podcasts, right? I mean, you do need a place where you can just go and vent. The only issue is that this was not what I wanted. I should have partnered up with somebody who was like the podcast we're doing together right now. We do talk about trauma. I mean, I bleed about my traumatic childhood in every episode, I think. But the point is that it does not have that sting to it, because I use it as reference points to healing, to giving tips to healing. So tips for healing. So yeah, that is that. As in, if you're not comfortable practicing your authenticity, practicing your authentic voice, you can say yes to a lot of things. You can say yes to making a podcast on a theme that you don't resonate with. You can say yes to, I mean, I have clients who are in marriages that they don't like because they do not want to hurt the person proposing to them, because they were together for like 3-4 years. And I'm like, and this is not a joke. I mean, a lot of clients come to me, and at the end of 2 sessions, the second session, they tell me that this is not the person that they want to spend their life with, but they can't end the marriage because they don't want to hurt the other person. And then, of course, there's a whole journey to, healing from that. And
but it's also actually like when I see something like that, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but because it can be misunderstood, but it's a kind of karma as well. It's like if we are doing this against ourselves or whatever, it's kind of like it's a part of our karma, and it's something we're working with. And perhaps it's something that we decided to work with throughout this life.
Exactly.
Okay, back to
exactly. That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true. So the tradition that I come from, we believe that you can always opt out of your karma, in the sense that you can get on top of your karma. There is a way in which you can either stay in a toxic situation or in a situation that you are unhappy with, or you can take matters into your own hands, which is the reason I was attracted to this whole tradition, because the whole helplessness with when you introduce something called karma, for some people, it can bring in that element of being helpless. So the tradition I come from, we are taught that it's not a teaching, it's something that you experience through the practices they teach you. At any point in any lifetime, you can choose to break a karmic contract with somebody. And not in a way in which you banish the other person, because you haven't learned a lesson if you are the lesson that karma was supposed to teach you, if you banish the other person. But yeah, I think we should do because if I try to sum it up in 5 minutes, it's going to be misunderstood. But yeah, that's true. I mean,
what would you say, like, to empower people to awaken and free their healer within? Like, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would like to give them 2 practices.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would like to give them 2 practices. So the practices are, one, you can you can expect the practices are for finding your authentic self, to connect back to your authentic self, right? So I'll give you a surface method and a deep method. Okay. So a surface level method would be, and this is only surface level method if you're doing it all by yourself. If you're doing this with a practitioner, this can be a very, very deep practice. And depending on your level of spiritual development, this can be deep. But I'll just give it to you. So the first is that you have to start experimenting with practices. As in practices like yoga, practices like dance, dance. And why I specifically said yoga and dance is because yoga has a structure to it. As in you're supposed to do it the same time every day, and you're supposed to do it like continuously. So it has this masculine structure to it. Okay. And then you can alternate that with something like dance. I always say belly dancing, not the structured variety that you have right now, as in that is being taught in certain schools right now, because that becomes like yoga. Because if you put a routine to something, it becomes this masculine structured, way. So you're not experimenting with energy. The reason I said start a yoga practice is because it helps you experiment with the masculine side of things. Okay, and then do some flowy dance. Okay, because that helps you explore the feminine side of things. And somewhere along the line, in about 2 weeks, something magical starts happening. As in, things start clicking into place for you. You realize, where in my life do I need a structured approach, the masculine approach? And where in my life do I need the feminine approach, the flowy, okay, embrace going with the flow approach.
Nice.
Okay. Right. So, to help you with routines, to help you with sticking with the yoga routine, because I know this is a huge problem for many people who are trying to heal themselves, is you can call in the spirit of the wolf. Oh, the wolf here. Oh, we were having a conversation on,
I was just going to say, oh yeah, it's like in shamanism when we talk to the spirit animal, like the wolf. And we practice, like, for example, we're building a relationship with that's the soul of wolf. And then you start noticing with time that like wolf starts speaking to you like, oh, at this time it's better to do something with the society,
Oh my God, this is exactly what I was going to say. This is exactly what I was going to say. And since you have studied shamanism formally, I think you should say it, because you will be able to.
And I just gave my example when I was with my husband. It's like I was in the kitchen doing something, I don't know, but like Wolf started talking. It's like, oh, right now, because I didn't know stuff about my limits and boundaries. So I was like, I want to be me and do my stuff, but I also want to be with my husband, with my family. And then, and I was like, I don't know where my limits and boundaries are. So Wolf started kind of whispering in my ears, like, you see this is a good time to actually be with your family, because no. And then sometimes the wolf would come and whisper in my ear, say, okay, now it's good to do your own thing now. And then so it became a teacher. So yeah, like I understand masculine and feminine. If you engage, you're building your relationship to the masculine and feminine, and that's when they start speaking back to you and teaching you. And it's amazing.
Yeah, because the wolf is a pack animal. So to live in a pack, you have to be part of the group, and you have to have your individuality as well.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, the kitchen example you gave me. Can you tell the audience how to build a relationship with the wolf spirit? Like, how do you deepen your relationship? How do you invite it in, and how do you?
Well, to communicate my practices that I received from my teacher is very long story. Like, but I can say that short story is this: everyone can build a relationship, and you can do it just now. Like, this information is coming. You can actually do it in whatever creative way you can do it. It can be even just drawing a picture of a wolf, painting it, and communicating with however it is that you perceive like wolf, and I talk psychically, so I have these visions and stuff, but for people, it would it could be journaling, like talking to wolf in writing. It could be by drawing. It could be by sitting in meditation and calling in the spirit of wolf, the consciousness of wolf, and be conscious of who you're calling, because wolf is also like a society and also like one. So what do you want to talk to? The wolves in general, or like a particular wolf, or a particular kind of wolf, and also ask specific questions. And for some people, it can be just meditation and thinking of the wolf. Yes. Maybe even listening to wolf songs. I don't know, but for everybody, it's going to be different, because I don't want to limit only what I learned how to do this. Yes. So because this podcast is about freeing the person to do it by themselves. So just be creative. But how you're going to do it, just know that, as you said, for a number of days, if you keep doing whatever it is you chose to do, it starts speaking back to you. So consistency is also a thing.
Exactly. And the wolf helps you with consistency. The thing is that you're working with an archetype of the wolf, which is about consistency. So it will just meditating on it and setting the intention that I want to connect to my authentic truth, and I want to do certain practices for a certain number of days. So give me commitment to this practice. So the wolf spirit will help you with that. That's just like you invite a goddess, Kali. Kali is about dispelling darkness and everything in your psyche that's dark and is clouding your vision. So just like you invite the goddess, you can invite the wolf spirit, because these are all, like the way my tradition sees it, is these are all energy forms. And by inviting them in, you're becoming one with that energy form.
Mm-hmm.
And you can stay with that energy for as long as you want.
Oh, you could look at documentaries of wolves, actually. Like, seriously, it may sound so stupid. Oh my God, it's like...
No, it's not. Even looking at a picture of a wolf.
Yeah. You can watch documentaries with wolf, have it in the background of your, like, with no sound or something. Seriously, read some articles on wolves, the lifestyle of wolves, whatever. Seriously, it doesn't have to be following some set of rules at all. Be creative, but so the structure is stick to one thing. Creative, stick feminine and masculine again.
Exactly. Have fun with it. Feminine and masculine energies are just ways of explaining a concept to you. The concept of receiving and the concept of giving. And once you have learned the concept, you don't really have to stick with words or anything. It becomes part of you. You know where to. Like in the last episode, when I lost the plot, you actually gave me masculine structure. Right, but you are a woman. So this is not like men have masculine energy and women have feminine energy. Yes, I mean, part of it is. But anything to do with structure, anything to do with picking up the pieces when everything seems to be chaotic, giving words to something that somebody is not able to explain, that's all part of structure. So we define it as masculine energy just to teach people what it is about, what that fundamental energy is about. And femininity is all about flow, and wherever you're feeling stuck, you bring feminine energy into it because you need more flow there. Because if you're stuck, then nothing happens there. There's no forward movement. Right? So yeah, that's that. I could see you squinting when I said masculine here.
No, I was squinting because I don't remember the structure I gave you. So I don't remember giving structure.
I mean, that is the natural state, actually. The point is that if it is something which is part of you, you don't really realize it. When are you bringing feminine energy into a conversation and masculine energy into a conversation or wherever? Because it just becomes, it's a natural state, actually. Okay, so like I said, we are all born with a unique imprint. As in, you are born with, there are areas in your life where you're predominantly going to use your feminine energy. There are areas in your life where you're predominantly going to use your masculine energy. Let me just give an example. For example, if you're a poet or a musician, it doesn't matter what gender you are, what your sex, biological sex is. You will use a lot of feminine energy because the nature of music, poetry, all of that is such that you receive information or inspiration. Right. So a lot of artists, even if they are male, a lot of chefs, even if they are male, they use a lot of feminine energy. In fact, a lot of billionaire men use feminine energy Because to attract that kind of money, you have to be a vortex of, a vortex that attracts energy. There is only so much grinding you can do to earn your money. That's a very masculine way of, okay, I do this and I get this. The feminine way of attracting things is to just magnetize things. A lot of billionaire men use a lot of feminine energy. When you build a network, when you build people who can help you, when you build streams of passive income, when you do, as in when the effort, the physical action that goes into your work is much less compared to the returns you get on your action, you're actually using a lot of feminine energy. So this is why masculine and feminine energy have nothing to do with your biological sex or the body you were born in, because that's biological sex, or your gender, the gender you identify with. You can be gender fluid, you can identify as a man, woman, anything at all, and you could be using this energy. The point is, you are born, like I said, you are born with a unique imprint. So if you are meant to create a business or create art or anything using a lot of action, where you're using a lot of intellect, where more than sitting in meditation or more than just going around life in a flowy, feminine way, you have to use your intellect to bring something into existence and use action, a lot of action to bring something into existence. Be that a painting or a business or bringing up your child or whatever. If that is your core imprint, then you are supposed to use masculine energy in those areas. There is a very masculine way of being a mother. Helicopter parenting is a very masculine way of being a mother or being a parent. Laid back parenting, as in where you're co-creating with the child, where you're letting the child be, where you trust the process and know that you are just supposed to be a guide to this child, and you can, you don't have to control aspects of, their life. I mean, I have clients who they believe in intuitive eating, so they don't have these meal plans and schedules for their children. They told me that their child had a lot of wisdom when they were born. Their child had much more wisdom than the parents when it came to what will suit their body, what is it that they're supposed to eat. And these parents were like very intuitive, and they knew that the child should be left alone and, should be given charge of what foods to eat. And nutritionally, they are up there. There's no deficit there. As in, this child does not need a schedule, does not need a meal plan. So what is the role of the parent there? The parent is sort of not taking a backseat, but you are basically just very receptive, very, that's feminine energy, very receptive to what the child needs, to what the child, wants, what the child is demanding. And then you just, facilitate that. But then if you have a child who does not know what to do, or a child who's a bit scattered, then that child may require a bit of direction. That does not mean that you completely take over the child's life, because then the child is not going to use their intuition at all. And you will take away the child's authenticity by, talking over the child. But then, you're more active in your parenting with such kids. It's not like, so it completely depends upon the kind of child, the soul of the child in this case. So just like that, like I said, painting. There are some artists who use a lot of, I think installation art is an example of this. Most of installation art, I think. Again, I'm not an authority on this, but from what I've seen, a lot of intellect goes into, a lot of thinking goes into, it involves a lot of thinking, and it involves a lot of doing, and everything has to be down. Like, you have to have all the details in place. Everything has to go according to, a certain structure. So that's a very masculine way of, going about it. And then, of course, you have very flowy art, mandala art for that matter, or, any of it, stuff like that, where you're just going with the flow, where sometimes you don't know whether you're channeling or you don't know where it's coming from. There are authors like that who write entire novels thinking about it, as in all of it is just, of course, we're all channeling, as in even when you're using your intellect, some part of you is always channeling, because you cannot be out of sync with the cosmic forces, as in I mean, you cannot exist without channeling on some level, right? But if you're using if a lot of thinking is going into your novel or whatever it is, an academic book or whatever, then that's a masculine way of going about it. But then, of course, you have channeled books, fantasy books. As in, sometimes when you pick a book, don't you get a sense that this is channeled work? Even without reading it, you know that this is channeled work. This is not just, this is a co-creation. This is a complete co-creation. And then, the energy of a book which is all you, or it's mostly you, the author, that's very different from a book which is a co-creation, where you have allowed, all books are co-creation in that sense, but the percentages, they reflect it. It's reflected in the energy. So I would say allow yourself to have fun with these things. For example, if you like cooking, experiment with cooking, as in one day cook with an intention, with a purpose in mind, that I have to feed these 5 people, or I'm cooking for these 5 people, or these people in my house, and this is for nourishment. This is fuel for my children. This is fuel for me or my husband, my partner, whatever it is. Okay, so try cooking with this intention, where you are cooking because you want to do something, because it's fuel. It's just fuel. And notice your energy when you're doing that. You will predominantly be in your masculine. You don't have to take my word for it, but you will go into that mode where you're doing this, where you're building something, where you're contributing to something. Then the next day, cook with the intention of just cooking, as in you're cooking for love. You're cooking because you want your children to have an experience. It's not fuel that day. Of course, it's fuel, but you're not cooking with that intention. You're cooking with the intention of giving them an experience of the richness of flavor.
So consciously try to... So consciously, like, try to do an activity like cooking while doing it consciously in a masculine structured way, and sometimes consciously do it in a feminine way. So it's like...
Exactly. And then ask yourself which way resonates with you. Do you like cooking in a masculine way? Do you like cooking in a feminine way? And that is your core imprint when it comes to that particular activity. And then you can ask yourself while you're journaling, or you can just ask yourself, just ask your subconscious mind that, okay, in what areas of my mind do I want to be fluid? And in what areas of my life do I need structure? And it comes to you. And since you're already doing a practice, it can be cooking, it can be anything. Like, it could be just about anything.
Too. Yeah.
Sports. Yeah, of course. Even having sex, for that matter. I mean, people do have... there is a sensual way of lovemaking, and then there is sex because you want to just cool off some steam.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. Both of them are fine. I mean, we all, neither of it is supposed to be shunned. But the point is, which one do you enjoy more? And you might enjoy something, but you might enjoy the masculine way of doing things in one season of your life. And in another season of life, you might enjoy doing the same activity using your feminine energy. That's the beauty of all of this. You may have a core imprint, but you also have seasons of your life. So our task is to find out what is the energy we want to operate out of right now. And when you do this for 14 days, many things start falling into place for you. You realize that, okay, I have been doing this like this for a long time. I have been cooking from my masculine energy for a long time. And I'm not enjoying it. I want to, do it the feminine way. And if you master this with one activity, it bleeds into all your other activities. And ultimately, masculinity and femininity, masculine and feminine energy, it's not about being masculine or being feminine. It's about aligning with your core energy. It's about understanding, what are you authentically? Are you authentically masculine or authentically feminine? It has nothing to do with your biological sex. What are the activities? As a woman, I'm speaking about myself now. As a woman, when I teach, I know I am in my masculine. As in, we are having a conversation, but especially when I work with difficult clients, I can actually come from that space of structure and rigidity. And if a client comes to you and they're deeply disturbed, they need structure from you. Mm-hmm. So I can easily shift into that. And then there are clients where, so I'm predominantly in my masculine when I'm teaching or when I'm with clients with most of my clients. But then there are clients who need mother energy from me or a soft feminine energy from me. And I know that if I give them a structure that they cannot follow, they're going to fall apart. So with them, I'm more flowy for a while. I see where it goes. I see what works with them. So it's a fine balance. But if you ask me, what am I comfortable, what energy am I, like authentically, what am I when I teach or when I coach or when I heal? Not heal, because healing is a completely different, Mm-hmm. When I teach or when I coach, I am predominantly in my masculine energy. But that's not what I am when it comes to my romantic life. As in there, I'm completely like the other pole. And it's not something I'm doing consciously. It's just, that is what I am when I'm with somebody that I'm romantically interested in. It's always been like that. So it's about knowing the core energy that you want to, the core authentic energy you have in the various aspects of your life, your romantic life, your career, the way you relate to your children, the way you relate to your friends. It's just that. So by using this, you can come closer and closer to authenticity. Mm-hmm. Another practice I'd like to give people is to just, and this might not be possible for everybody, especially if you're living in a family or, it depends on whether your family will understand you or if you have a partner who understands you. But I would suggest take a week off to yourself. And by that, I mean, don't speak to anybody. Don't watch TV. Don't listen to the radio. Don't go on social media. Just tell all your loved ones or, whoever that you are usually in touch with that you won't be available for that particular week. Have food which does not excite you. In the sense, I'm not asking you to have like extremely bland food because that will take you out of it. But don't have foods which will make you involved in the experience of that food, because your focus has to be on you. Mm. Okay, so remove all external stimulation, all external chatter, all your conversations. What you will be left with is your internal chatter. All your childhood trauma, all your fears, all your feelings of unworthiness, all your fears of that fear of missing out that you have. Oh my God, I'm going to spend a week alone. My friends will be having a lot of fun alone. Oh, what if my partner cheats on me? This is a big one. I mean, my female clients are like, oh my God, if I go off for a week, I'm like, he's not going to cheat on you. I mean, 1 week. I mean, what kind of a relationship do you have? So it's funny, but so
yeah, or like my work. Oh, I'm gonna miss out on my work, or I'm gonna.
Yes, that's a big one. Miss out on my, and even if you're able to take that week off, as in get a week's holiday from work, like most people go into the spiral of, oh my God, my rival at work is going to do something spectacular in this 1 week, and they're going to impress the boss, and so in this 1 week, all of those fears are going to come out. Mm-hmm. You are supposed to sit and journal, or you are supposed to, record your own voice. I would suggest recording your own voice, recording your own thoughts in your own voice, because something very cathartic happens when you listen to your voice notes. When you listen to what you had to say about yourself or your life situation, even 2 hours ago. It does not have to be like 3 days ago. Even 2 hours ago, like I am a different person in every moment of my life, right? I mean, because I'm a different set of thoughts, a different set of emotions. So you learn a lot about yourself by rereading journals or listening to your voice notes. Listening to your voice notes is, I think, even a better practice in some ways, because you can discern a lot from your intonation and inflection, and your voice conveys a lot more than just words. It just,
Plus, you filtered out the words too. When you were writing them, you were really summarizing what you wanted to write, because we're lazy. We don't want to write so much. And also we start to filter out like, oh, I don't want myself to write this. What if someone sees this? Or what if I read it later or something?
Exactly. Because some people are afraid that it will manifest in their life. That's a huge, block as well. So if you do this, I mean, there are people who, I think Aubrey Marcus went on a darkness retreat. A darkness retreat is an extreme case of this, where, for 7 days you operate in complete darkness. So you're left with nothing. You're just left with, with you and your thoughts and everything. And after the 3-day mark, I think your body starts releasing DMT, which is supposed to be a hallucinogen. Yes, which is supposed to be a hallucinogen, but it's actually taking you closer to your spiritual truth and your core. But I wouldn't suggest that to the audience, to anybody in the audience, because
it seems pretty
to
tough.
do that, it's pretty tough. But also, like, you need a certain level of spiritual expertise to be able to do it. Otherwise, you can actually go crazy. So don't attempt this if you, don't attempt this if you have depression or any of it. But the mild version of this, taking a week off, spending it with yourself, that you can do. And if you don't trust yourself, if you feel that your thoughts will become too overwhelming, then make sure that, you can do it with your partner in the same house. Maybe you can just live in a room for that 1 week. So you're not completely cut off from people, but, if you need help, if your thoughts are becoming too violent or whatever, you can just go out and say that. I did this in isolation, but that was when I was in a very healthy place, mentally, emotionally. So that's different. And you can also use trance music, shamanic drums, everything about nature frequencies. They really help you with this kind of work, because what happens is when you're alone with your thoughts, your worst fears come up. And if you have trance music, shamanic drums playing in the background all the time, it carries you through. Because these are natural frequencies. These are frequencies which bring you back to your core again and again. That's what these things do. And bring you here. Right. So when you're breaking open, essentially what is happening when you are with yourself or with your thoughts, you're trying to break yourself open. You're trying to reach that core. Right. But then you have so many fears which come up. And it's these fears which are not allowing you to come back to your core or to your authenticity. So if you play trance music or shamanic music, you have help from something, from natural frequencies, which are all about bringing you back to the core. So the core intention that you have of coming back to your core and the frequency of this music, the core intention of trance music, shamanic music, is the same. So that's how it works. Play it around, and it's like this fluffy bed on which you can rest if you, don't really, And there comes a stage where you completely surrender to the music. That's when you break open. People think that breaking open means you will be, oh my God, now this is like dark 2-3 days. That can happen with the darkness retreat, which is why I wouldn't suggest it for everybody. But this is a milder form. So that's that.
And I'm getting like, even you and me gave 2 different practices, kind of. Mine was about analyzing. Yes, analysis in yours too. But mine is like analyzing for some specific actions, like what do you want to do, And I realized that my approach was very masculine, because I'm given a practice for what do you want to do? For example, I want to post a real post that I actually have something like I feel alive about it. So, or I want to paint, or I want to do this, or I want to do something that I couldn't do before that I really, really wanted. And so my practice was analyzing, here's the society you think is so gigantic. Here's what you think your authenticity is. So break it down, and break it down and make it a specific action versus a specific small society. But yours is very feminine. Like there is less structure and so flowy. That's why it's hard for me to understand. But I am the witness, and I can attest to this kind of practice, because once I started talking to you and taking your practices, like experimenting with them, it's really, like you said, it bleeds into other areas of your life. So you can, it may seem kind of weird. Why I'm doing yoga and dancing? It's not going to work. What kind of nonsense is this? But this kind of stuff like really bleeds, like very, very gently, very in a feminine way, just bleeds into different areas of your life, and you start getting realizations and light bulbs. I'm just speaking from experience, that what I've done from you, like your practices, light bulbs.
And Olga knows that I have absolutely, like I have absolutely no structure in my life, but everything falls into place for me. So
yeah,
I would say I have no structure, but I try not to have like very rigid structures. So yeah.
So I can say, if from a masculine, I guess my approach is like masculine. From this masculine perspective, like your perspective is like really cool. I mean, it works, and it's very different, but it works.
Safe with you. That's why I feel very safe with you, because you're somebody who knows how to work with structure and boundaries, and you were the one who taught me about boundaries. As in, I knew about boundaries as a concept, but I had a lot of resistance to it. But you introduced it to me in a very loving, but I fell in love with structure, in the sense that I no longer think that structures and boundaries are an attack on my freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I learned that from you. So
we should do an episode about it.
Oh, yes, we should. So, Olga mentioned inviting the spirit of the wolf. By one of the ways in which you can invite the spirit of the wolf into your life is by listening to wolf songs. And it just reminded me that of Jonna Dinton, who is this YouTuber and wonderful musician and artist. And she has a version of a wolf song, which is extremely beautiful. And I think we should link it in the description. Just find her. She's very good with, the wolf song and natural frequencies. In fact, her YouTube channel has a lot of videos with natural frequency songs. So,
yeah. And I also want to mention that, like, what I am speaking of, and my advice on, like, regarding even connecting to wolf is really like very, very free in the way, like, it just use your creativity. And yeah, it's different from what I learned from my teacher, which involves like a lot of stuff, like, which I can teach, but I guess it's for those who would think, who would be comparing it to some shamanic practices. Like, this is from my heart, this is from my heart. Like, this is my advice from me, from Olga. It's not following some structure of like a particular teacher or something, but I guess I'm doing it so that, because sometimes there's some kind of resistance, like, oh no, this is not the real shamanism or something. Forget the word shamanism then. Just forget it. Just connect to wolf.
Exactly.
Forget all your structures and beliefs. Just connect to it. And also, it's not just wolf for anything, for depression or whatever. If you feel like connecting to anything in the world, just connect to that thing. Like, I love to connect to sun. It just makes me, like, whenever I actually really feel depressed or something, I connect to sun, and I sit and stare. I don't stare at the sun. It's painful and dangerous, but I close my eyes and I let the sun just wash over me, and I talk to the sun. And if you start, again, even drawing or watching documentaries about the sun, whatever it is, the sun is going to start teaching you how, like, its own wisdom. So if you pay attention to it, it will pay attention to you, kind of. If you listen to it, it will speak in your ear, so be creative in who you want to connect to. Like, maybe it's the sun, maybe it's something else. I don't know. But
for me personally, tonight I'm going to connect to the spirit of the sea anemone, because it is about, personally for me, it is about nourishment and finding the right support group. And by support group, I mean people, not an actual group, but people who support me. So, and nourishment. So yeah, I'm going to connect with sea anemones tonight.
Yeah. So every time we do a podcast, we think of a million other things we're gonna do this on. So thank you guys for listening, for watching. Please let us know what you guys think. Let us know if you have any practices that you would like to share with anyone who's interested in becoming authentic in a society full of people. And also join us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group called Demystifying Healing Podcast, and you can ask questions there and we answer you. And we are into creating a community that is mutually supportive and helping people to awaken their own healer within and be their own healers and be their own free people. I don't know. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being with us. If you have any questions and if you want short answers to your personal questions, to any spiritual question you have, or any personal problem that you have, or anything with a career, you can write to us in the Facebook group, and we'll try to make short videos for you, 5-minute videos for you. It will be helpful not only to you but to everybody who is in a similar predicament. So join a community. Lots of love to you. Okay. Thank you so much.
See you there, guys. Okay. Thank you and bye.